part of the whole thing up there. The desire to move is to just kind of like figure out how to like rejuvenate my weary soul.
Welcome to the Streets.mn podcast, the show where we highlight how transportation and land use can make our communities better places. Coming to you from beautiful Seward, Minneapolis, Minnesota, I am your host, Ian R. Buck. Last year, I started listening to Car Free Midwest, a show based in Omaha about shifting our transportation systems away from car dependence. I was very excited to hear one of the hosts, Sarah Johnson, talking about wanting to move from Omaha up to the Twin Cities, and I knew that I was going to have to get her on our show to talk about it. We recorded at a couple of different points during the process. Back in December when she hadn't yet settled on what neighborhood she wanted, and then again in June after she'd been in her new home for about a week. Come join us on her journey. I'm somebody who has only ever lived in the Twin Cities, besides like going off to college for 4 years. But so like the prospect of moving to an entirely different city that I'm not familiar with at all, like intimidates the hell out of me. Yeah. And I'm really, really curious, like in your experience, like how does one go about like choosing a neighborhood, you know, in a city that you're not familiar with, that you're not sure, like what are my day-to-day like travel patterns going to look like, and where do I want to spend time? Right.
I don't know, so I'm winging it. Because when I moved to, obviously when I moved to Lincoln, I was in the dorms for a few years and then got to figure out kind of the lay of the land there. So I knew where I wanted to live after that because I had spent some time there. And then in Grand Lake, Colorado, which is like considered a village because under 500 people live there year round. So it's definitely a tourist town, like blows up to a couple thousand during the summer and then back down to a couple hundred in the winter. And I just, I moved up there to be with my then boyfriend. So that didn't really require much thought either because he was from Omaha, but he lived up there for a long time. So no thought had to go into that really either. So this is an entirely new prospect. I do know a handful of people that are in either Minneapolis or St. Paul.
Many of whom have been on your podcast.
True. Some have. And I think like the thing that really pushed me to St. Paul, so our parameters, we know we want to leave Omaha. So that's where it starts. Then we're like, okay, we want to go someplace.
Much more of a push factor than a pull factor.
It started like that. And then it turns into now more of a pull because we're like, wow, we are realizing we've been up there a handful of times over the last year. And we also, for a minute, we were thinking about Madison, Wisconsin. And then we quickly were like, I don't know, we didn't feel it, like I want to be like, oh, this is my jam. Like, this is where I want to be. And that's kind of how we felt in St. Paul. And I like West 7th, but I don't know anything about really any of the neighborhoods. So I want to quiz you as much as you want to quiz me because
absolutely,
I really don't know much about much. I don't know what I will be doing for employment when I get up there. My husband's an artist, so he works from home. So as long as he's by a post office, short bike ride ideally to a post office would be helpful. We both rely on e-bikes. I physically cannot ride a regular bike right now, maybe ever again, which I'm not wanting to come to terms with, but life's weird. And Scott, my partner, I almost like didn't want to date him when I first met. He came to the bike shop, but he was such an e-bike weirdo. I was like, e-bikes, I don't know. Like I used to race mountain bikes and I was very like, kind of a purist. So I'm curious about what the e-bike culture is up there. But before that, I guess, we don't really know where we're going to live. We're looking at some different homes. We are going to be buying a house. I don't really know for sure it'll be St. Paul, but we're feeling like 99% sure it'll be St. Paul. A couple that I know that lives in St. Paul, adorable. And they said that St. Paul is quieter, greener, and kinder than Minneapolis. And I was like, my heart, that is what my heart needs. So I don't know would you say that seems like an accurate?
I think the quieter part of that claim is definitely true. I feel like the other two kind of get into like judgment calls.
Sure. Yep.
Like both Minneapolis and St. Paul have like fantastic park systems.
Yeah.
And they're both like very well connected via trail systems, So yeah, I think I would give them both points for greenery. Kinder, is like
that gets into a little bit of yikes territory for me of like like people in the excerpts calling like Minneapolis Murderapolis, and it's like, oh right. God, okay.
Yeah,
there's a lot wrapped up there.
Yeah. If it bleeds, it leads. So of course you think of murder when you think of Minneapolis, because that's what they want to show you. But
right.
Yeah,
in terms of the politics of like citywide politics, I would say that St. Paul's feels a lot calmer, and I'm not sure if that's because there are fewer important issues that are like going badly, or if that's just because there aren't as many people in the city who are like paying attention and getting into the minutia and like making long Twitter threads about whatever the hot thing right now is.
Yeah. Honestly, I struggle a lot with like, how much do I want to get involved in politics in whatever city we land in next, because I have been frustrated. And it feels like too much at a point. Like, that's part of why I got to leave Omaha. I feel like I'm like, nope, I already know all the players and half of them are rotten and I'm uninterested. And so I'm like, do I live in like a little bit of ignorant bliss for a minute, or do I just jump right in? I don't know. So I think time will tell. I'm trying to not have too many expectations. But yeah, I'm just excited to kind of like explore a new place and kind of disconnect from a lot of the
And in terms of like being able to easily plug into things, there's a number of like really, really good nonprofit advocacy organizations here in the Twin Cities that like there will be stuff, there will be newsletters that you can subscribe to and just like, one click, send an email to my city council member.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
It can be as low effort or as involved as like you want it to be.
That's good to know. Yeah, I'm excited to be on the like more low effort side of things for a minute. Also, like my health stuff, I just still don't feel great, so I'm kind of trying to be realistic about what all I can get into. So we'll see. I don't know. Time will tell. I mean, part of the whole thing up there, the desire to move, is to just kind of like figure out how to like rejuvenate my weary soul. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've been kicked around Omaha too much. It's hard. I care too much for Omaha, I think.
So you did ask me specifically about like what's the e-bike culture like. We've got a lot of people in the biking community who are really enthusiastic about e-bikes. I think most of the individuals who I have seen who like have made e-bikes part of their big identity, like the thing that they will talk about all the time. Most of them are from St. Paul. I mean, I would imagine that there's probably more people on e-bikes in Minneapolis, but that's just because there's more people in Minneapolis. Yeah. And that's kind of like a microcosm of the broader like cycling community as well. Is like when I go over to Minneapolis, I run into more people who I know, and it feels like a higher density of people biking, but that's also just partially because there is a higher density of people, period. Yeah. And so like you can get that critical mass without having a critical mass ride, of like of just people out there on the streets. Yeah.
That's exciting to think about. Like I think it's finally happened where like I don't recognize everybody on a bike in Omaha, but there were a lot of years where I literally, if you were out on a bike, I probably stole it to you, or at least know who you are. And I'm kind of excited about not having that be the case. Can I ask what part of town you live in?
I live in Frogtown.
Okay, cool.
So I grew up on the east side of St. Paul, and that's where I moved back to after college. Okay. Got very lucky and just happened to get a job at a high school that was a mile away from where I was living. Nice. So I just walked to school most days. And that was, it was a great way to like clear my head after a day of like babysitting a
Chaos.
Bunch of high school students.
I can only imagine. Excellent.
But we ended up moving away from the east side because like getting from the east side to most other parts of the Twin Cities was very challenging, whether it be by bike or by bus. Because like so my biggest hot take in terms of like choosing a neighborhood in the Twin Cities is I find it very, very useful to be in between the downtowns of
Yeah, that's
St. Paul and Minneapolis.
cool. Yep, that's kind of what we're thinking too. Because I'm like, I know there's a lot going on in Minneapolis that we're going to want to be,
Exactly.
interacting with regularly. So why would we want to live on the east side? Because actually my friends who said kinder, cleaner, or cleaner, whatever those words, green, they live on the east side. Yeah, and they're like, don't discount the east side. And I'm like, yeah, totally. But also I think I like the idea of being able to like, my friend Anna Schwinn is, she's like, okay, bonfires, you're gonna have to come over for backyard fires. And I'm like, okay, how do I ride from wherever I would be to Anna's backyard?
Mm-hmm.
These are the questions that I have. I also, we have a handful of friends that are over there, and I'm like, I think it would be fun to live a little closer to Minneapolis. So I don't know. One of my big things that we're looking for is a quieter street, because we live on 52nd Street, which is a drag strip effectively. And as like a safe streets advocate, it like boils my blood. And so less chaos in front of the house would be great. Omaha is super segregated. It's still dealing with the effects of redlining. And so we are like on the edge of North Omaha, which like, I don't know. I have a big problem with a lot of equity issues in Omaha. But anyway, so North Omaha is, historically Black folks. And we hear the police helicopter all the time because they just circle around waiting for something to happen. So I'm just like, I can't believe it. I'm like that old lady who's like yelling, get off my lawn, and like I want quiet. I feel like a NIMBY or something. But yeah, I'm just excited for a little more calm and a little quieter. We'll see. But not suburbs. I'm not a suburb person. So like I don't want to live in the burbs for quiet, but I want to find just a casual street in the cities.
Right. Yeah. So actually that does bring up something. I think that like in St. Paul, Highland Park is one of the most overrated neighborhoods that there is.
Okay, yeah.
And it feels like a suburb.
That's what I thought.
Inside the city.
I'm actually glad you said that, because when we were there last, I was like, this feels a little like, the burbs. But it's still technically in the city, right? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's overrated because like it's not nearly as well connected to the bus grid as like a lot of other neighborhoods in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Living near the Green Line, right, was kind of the main thing that attracted us to Frogtown. And it has, that had a lovely side effect of like, okay, I'm close enough to University Avenue that like I live a 10-minute walk from many, many different stores, amenities and things. But also like, I mean, I wish that there was higher density in my neighborhood, but it is mostly single family homes, in like the 2 or 3 blocks in my area.
Okay.
But it's a short block to the, mixed use, high density stuff that's on University. So
how long have you been there? Liking it so far?
Since 2017. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
Nice.
love Frogtown, and
Cool.
honestly, I've been trying to convince, like, I've made a lot of friends since 2020 on to now who like we want to hang out in person more now that we are able to, and they all live in like the Wedge or in Uptown or like way over
far away,
like a 40-minute bike ride away, and it's a lovely bike ride because I get to go on the Greenway. But it's still it's like I can't hang out until 11 p.m. and then go home and feel well rested the next day.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
So I am in a little bit of a pickle right now of like, okay, can I convince all of my friends to all move to Frogtown at the same time? Or do I need to move a little bit closer to the Minneapolis side of town? Yeah. And I mean, and housing prices are like changing so much.
Bonkers. I guess we'll see what happens in the spring, but that'll definitely dictate a lot of what we're able to look at up there is what we can get for this. All sorts of fun.
Oh, and that's true. I mean, like I was looking at other houses in the same metro area, so roughly the same market, and everything's going up and down together.
Yeah.
Whereas I have no idea what stuff is looking like. Like, is Omaha a more or less desirable place to live in than it was, when you first bought, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, luckily, so my partner, he's been here for like 12 years. So we'll be fine as far as like what he bought it for and what we're able to sell it for, since it's been
Sure.
so long that way. The coasts are totally chaotic, and then Midwest kind of just like a little bit of a wave. But it seems to me from my Zillow time that the markets are sort of doing this similar ups and downs. I don't know. I feel like it'll come down to the house, frankly. Like, I feel like if we find the perfect house, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe the sunroom or something like that, I don't know. It'll be what's available when we're ready to go. Because we have to it's going to be complicated because, again, I don't have a full-time gig right now. And Scott's an artist. He doesn't make $1 bazillion. And so but we do own our house. So we're going to have to wait till this closes, live in a rental that my little brother has a rental house that we're going to rent from him for like March, April, May. We don't really know what that timeline's going to look like, but once this closes, then we'll be able to look at stuff up there and then hopefully just move from the rental to our new house. But, we'll see.
That gives you a heck of a lot more flexibility than a lot of people have.
Exactly.
Honestly.
We're super grateful, lucky, privileged, all the things. So we're gonna see what happens. But I am literally on Zillow every day. Like, it's a bit of a problem.
You're in your late 30s.
Time for a new fantasy.
On Zillow.
I'm not proud. We do have a realtor we met up there because we did come up, was that July, and looked at like 10 houses just to kind of get a feel for different neighborhoods and stuff like that and meet the realtor. She was awesome. So yeah, kind of getting a feel for different areas. But I think kind of like proximity to the light rail is a thing, which would be the downside of the West 7th situation. But I don't know. I just thought that what do you think about West 7th as a neighborhood?
I mean, I like the West 7th neighborhood. West 7th Street itself is like a huge
terrible
barrier to being able to like get to the river and use the trail that's near the river. There aren't a whole
road or something like that.
Yeah. It's the Sam Morgan Trail that goes alongside Shepherd Road, and nobody knows that it's called Sam Morgan Trail. Don't worry.
I wrote it. When we were out there last, but I would sketchily make my way onto that little trail and then scoot up in and hope to like not get smushed when I'm entering or exiting that trail. But it was just like so freaking cool to see trails where it's like, here's the pedestrian area, here's the bike part. It's like, oh my God, we beg for basics in Omaha. I always say that, we're begging for basics. And then like you go to the freaking place like that and people in cars are like waving you through intersections and like yielding and being polite humans. And I don't know, people in Omaha do not act like that. So that was pleasant. Are there like constant group rides and different events and all sorts of things going on? Because it feels like in Omaha, there's, aside from like Mode Shift Omaha, who kind of still does some bike rides and stuff, there's a few little club rides, but it's all real cliquey, like shop to shop. Is that kind of the same up there?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different groups that have group rides, and they'll all have like a different vibe for sure. And yeah, I don't know if anybody has like a cohesive list of these put together, but yeah, like I've gone to different groups, I've tried out different ones and kind of figured out like which one
feels
do I
like
enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Because everything from like, what speed do you want to go to like, okay, do you want to meet up at a brewery afterwards? That's 75% of the groups right there.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just like the go fast crew in Lycra. Yeah. What's your favorite shop up there? I don't know.
Lower Town Bike Shop.
Lower Town. Okay.
Yep. So they're in downtown St. Paul, right at Union Depot Station, which is also where the train stops.
Okay.
And
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, they're a nonprofit,
Cool.
and they do great work, and they've also always been the closest shop to where I live, so it all works out perfectly.
That does work. I know. So these are like the things I'm like, okay, I want to be close to good coffee, maybe close to a good bike shop. Library would be cool. Post office, maybe a food co-op. There are no co-ops in Omaha of any kind. That's another thing that I'm excited about. Bike co-ops, food co-ops, but because we're trying to kind of figure out like, okay, which amenities do we want to be sort of close by? Okay, here's a question for you. Is there a neighborhood that you would say is like, wow, not connected?
You know, something that actually you just occurred to me. We have a municipally owned electric car share system here.
That's cool.
That just launched like a year and a couple of months ago. called Evie, and they are, working on like expanding their like the area that they serve.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like keeping an eye on what their home area is on the map would be useful as well.
That's smart. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So a lot of West 7th is south of their current home area.
I like the feel, I think, of West 7th, but I also feel like maybe it will be a little farther away from where we'll want to be. I don't know.
You know what? I kind of feel like maybe not Cathedral Hill exactly, but like kind of in the area, like just west and south of Cathedral Hill might be nice to look at.
Okay.
I'm also saying that because I know that there is a Mississippi food co-op there.
Yeah. Thank you for thinking of that. Yeah, that's I went to the one on West 7th when we were there. I was like, oh, this would be nice.
And like Selby Avenue, between like Dale and Summit is like, it's super cute and it's such a nice area to walk around in, and there's so many shops, and it's mostly like, commercial use on the ground floor with like 2 to 3 floors of apartments above hand.
Selby vegan place.
Yes.
Super freaking tasty. Ugh. Yeah. In Omaha, there's like a vegan restaurant. It's not enough. It's not enough. I'm not vegan. I'm vegetarian, but I err on the side of vegan just because it makes me feel bad if I have a lot of cheese. Too much information. But yeah, so food is important. It's just exciting to think about being someplace where I don't know all the routes everywhere. That's the other thing is like, are there any, I've been seeing a little bit of drama about what they're trying to do on, is it Summit? The bikeway situation? Okay, that must be it. You're giggling. Tell me more. What do I need to know?
All right, we don't have time in this episode to really get into everything that happened on Summit. Most of you know that story already, but here's the quick version. St. Paul Parks and Rec was putting together a master plan for a regional trail on Summit Avenue, and they came up with a very smart design that incorporates like the nature of the street itself into the whole design and everything. Some of the residents of Summit Avenue itself do not like to see any change whatsoever, and were giving a bunch of nonsense reasons why they opposed this particular bike lane. It's very, very easy to debunk most of the things that they were saying, and it proceeded through the decision-making process at the city level, eventually getting a 6-1 vote in favor of the proposed design at City Council. So that trail design was voted on after this conversation with Sarah, but we are now in the future and we know kind of how that turned out.
When a plan comes through the pipes, is it like decades before you see the thing? Or how do you feel like you've watched plans turn into projects?
Yeah, it's
probably a problem everywhere.
It's definitely possible to be plugged in enough that like you see these projects a decade before they actually get implemented. But it's also possible to be like, just plugged in enough that you see, oh, hey, they're having an open house for this thing, and they're doing like the final iteration of figuring out what the design's going to be, and then it's going to happen in a year or two. So yeah, I mean there are a lot of things that are getting put in right now that, like, my friend Andy Singer at the St. Paul Bicycle Coalition, he's been doing advocacy work since the early 2000s. He's like, oh yeah, I remember that one. And I'm like, I was in first grade when you were doing that push. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like, and that's, I mean, while I am excited to get out of Omaha, I also know that a lot of the issues that I have with Omaha are not unique to Omaha, and just the way things move so slow everywhere is kind of, But the thing is, truly, Omaha seems like maybe 30 years behind the Twin Cities when it comes to like a lot of stuff from my perspective anyway. So even if things move slower up there, you're already light years ahead of where I feel like we are here. I don't know.
Right. And I mean, and things move slowly, but also like you can be more assured that they are a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's good.
Both St. Paul and Minneapolis have like comprehensive bike plans on the books that are directing staff at Public Works to implement these things.
Yeah.
And
not happening here.
and we have good staff on the job, who like they know how to get grants and federal money and attract that kind of investment.
Right.
So
just the fact that y'all have people that are dedicated to doing those things is delightful, because we had a bike ped coordinator that the previous administration created the position. That was the first time we had any dedicated bike walk staff. And this new mayor, who's not new anymore, but when she came in, that was one of the first things she did. The first budget she passed is she eliminated him. And I was like, no. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just over it. I'm over it. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself when I'm up there, but hopefully it involves less screaming into the void. We'll see. I don't even know.
and I mean, I definitely have like fantasized about like, what if I just like moved to Copenhagen or Amsterdam or something? Like I would never have to worry about being in the advocacy space ever again. And it's like, or I would probably find something.
See, that's the thing. Yeah. And I'm sure, like, as much as I'm like, I think I'll choose to be blissfully ignorant for a while. It's like, yeah, right. I actually already interviewed with Move Minneapolis or Minnesota as a joke. I got the interview though, but I didn't get the job, which is good because I'm like, hey, P.S. I live in Omaha still. So, but yeah, I'm just trying to kind of get to know more folks up there. And
yeah. And we will love to have you. That's
hopefully. Thank you. Okay, good. At least Ian signs off on it. That's excellent.
I mean, one of the wonderful advocacy organizations that we have in the Twin Cities is Neighbors for More Neighbors. So like that's the vibe of the community that you're stepping into.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to be a new neighbor wherever the neighborhood may be.
This actually reminds me of the approach that my friend Jeannie took when she was thinking of moving to the Twin Cities from Washington, D.C. She came and visited and went to some group bike rides and met people and got to know them and, connected with people on social media. So she was already, like, even while she was in D.C. before moving to the Twin Cities, she was getting a lot of, knowledge and seeing what folks were talking about around here, especially in like the urbanist community. Now, before we jump forward to June, let's take a break in a little segment that I'm calling the Parklet. This is where the podcast team can talk directly to you, the audience, outside of the main topic of the episode. First, we'd like to learn more about all of you. Putting a podcast out there can sometimes feel like speaking softly into the void, so we've put together a little survey that you can fill out to tell us a little bit about who you are, how you interact with the show, and what you'd like to hear from us. Second, I'd like to remind everybody that Streets.mn is supported by you, the audience. It's pretty challenging to do all of the awesome stuff that this organization pulls off on such a small budget, so every donation helps. If you'd like to pitch in, go to streets.mn/donate. And third, I'd like to close each Parklet by answering a quick urbanist question from the audience. So this first question is my own. I often complain that the transit routes that I rely on during weekdays, some of them don't work on weekends, and it makes it difficult for me to like plan stuff that I want to do on weekends. But then that got me wondering, are there any routes that only run on weekends? Going through all of the routes on Metro Transit's website, I couldn't find any. The closest would be MVTA's For Fun bus, which runs on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. If you have a question that probably has a quick answer, write an email to podcast@streets.mn and we'll research it for you. And now, to our June conversation with Sarah. Ironically, I had also moved during the time between these two recordings, from Frogtown to Seward. All right, so Sarah, it has been January, February, March, April, May, June. It's been a good 6 months since we chatted last.
I don't know how it's June, but you're right.
But you are in the Twin Cities now. You're in St. Paul.
I am. Well, Yeah, pretty much. We actually last minute scrambled and shoved some stuff in my parents' cars. And so technically I still have like a bicycle and two frames in their garage. But we're going back for Father's Day and then we're getting it and then I'll be 100% here. But
There you go.
we've been mostly here for the last week and a half.
And I knew that you were here because you were texting me, asking me for like route options
Yeah.
for getting to like the Sustained St. Paul bike plan event.
review. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was that was a funny day because my husband Scott and I have been just working our tails off over at this old house and we were just like nasty from painting and scraping and whatever. But I was like, I really just want to go to this event because I'm really curious about the bike plan and like I bet I'm gonna like meet some Twitter people there, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, so I was kind of doing a little like phone a friend on route recommendations, but we kind of I don't even remember how we got over there, but it was delightful. Oh, we Pelham. We kind of like meandered towards the river, which like wow, trails by the river that actually go to things. What a new concept. And then yeah, protected infrastructure on is it called pronounced Pelham?
Yeah. Yeah.
Up to that brewery. Yeah, it was rad.
And yeah. So Pelham is in an interesting spot because it was like the first example of a like it wasn't like curb raised, I think, because they weren't doing a full reconstruction, but it was the first example of a like bollard protected bike lane in St. Paul. And so like we have learned a lot of things from that project's implementation and, you know, and so like nowadays people look back on it and they're like, I don't really like Pelham so much, but
But Pelham is an Omahan's dream, let me
Yeah.
tell you. My first question, of course, is when did that go in? That you're like, that was so long ago. We've learned so many lessons.
that
It's so funny here.
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that because that was before my time in like the bike advocacy community. So it was pre 2015.
Yeah, no, I love it here. I think
It definitely
thing that,
wasn't
like,
30 years ago, kind of
well,
thing.
it's
You know,
also not still a pilot project, so like,
Right.
boom, I'm into it. Yeah, it was rideable infrastructure that, to my knowledge, wasn't like almost about to be removed at any moment. So yeah, it feels different here than Omaha in a good way.
I remember that like your priority was kind of like you had settled on St. Paul. You were sort of like thinking about which neighborhoods were going to be the best ones to look at, but ultimately it really was like you wanted to find the right house.
Yes, and the right street.
And as long as that was in a neighborhood that was well connected enough, like there you go.
Pretty much, yeah. We've been looking for about a year. Like June last year is when we kind of were like, okay, let's get real about this. So we've been looking for a while, and yeah, the main things were location as far as moving off of a busy street in Omaha, so looking for a quiet street in St. Paul. And actually, a lot of it had to do with noise, because part of the reason we didn't choose Minneapolis is because my delightful husband's also a map nerd, and he's like pulling up all these like airplane runway noise maps and stuff. And so we we're like, oh, dang, Minneapolis is noisy for that reason. Let's not. Between the less airport noise and then just we live on kind of a bookended street in Tangletown. Like the neighborhood even has a cute name. We're real smitten on this street over here. But yeah, it's delightful. The house is 1,000,000 years old and it's falling apart, and it's like literally every day we find a new catastrophe, but we're just, smiling our way through it. And yeah, it's like the money pit, but we're in St. Paul, so it's worth it.
So the house hunting process, putting out bids for things, like how competitive is that in 2023? It's been a few years since I've bought a house.
Yeah. No, it was silly. So this particular house, as I mentioned, we've been looking for a long time. And we have a delightful realtor up here. And so there were a few houses over the months where I'd be like, hey, can you see what's up with this one? And she'd walk through it and she'd be like, this looks sketchy. This is good, whatever. And then this one on Wheeler got listed, and we were just like, okay, that one looks really cute in the pictures, but like, is it falling over? What's the deal? So our realtor comes through and she sent us a video. We were doing a lot of like video tours, and we are just like, oh my goodness, this house is like maybe our house. Oh my goodness, it's a long, skinny lot, but we have two little riffraff dogs that love to scramble around. So big yard, 2-car garage, definitely doesn't have any cars in it. has a lot of bicycles. Anyway, and so it ticked a lot of boxes. And so when she did the walkthrough, she's like, this is really cute. You might want to think about it. And so the house was officially listed that Friday. She was the first one to walk through and send us a video. There was an open house the next day on April Fool's Day. So we were like, is this a sign? I'm not sure. But we were the fools because the night before was a huge blizzard. I don't know if you remember, but like that big, like,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Almost April blizzard.
Well, yeah, because that was the beginning of 30 Days of Biking, and everybody was like, wow,
indeed.
okay.
What a kickoff. Here we go. Yeah, so we were like, okay, we're going to drive there Saturday. We left Omaha at 6 a.m. The open house was like noon to whatever. So we just walked through the open house with our realtor, had lunch at Sheesh on Grand, right in our backyard, basically.
Oh, excellent choice.
And we were like, oh my gosh, we could like walk here. And, my hip's busted, so I don't really walk. But I'm like, this is close enough. Oh my goodness. So we had lunch, talked about it, and drove back to Omaha and talked about it some more. And yeah, called our realtor and we're like, we love that house. So it was very competitive. We were one of 6 offers. But we also like wrote like a sappy little letter to the family that had it. And yeah, we won out amongst the others. I think part of the deal with us was we were able to close really quickly, but it was all totally a crapshoot. Our house in Omaha closed on April 17th. We wrote up this offer on April 1st or 2nd to close on April 19th, just like hoping everything happened right, and it was contingent upon that. But then, yeah, here we are. So
there you go.
We didn't do any inspection though, and we knew that we were going to be like kind of, running into some fun because of our lack of inspection, but that was part of what made our offer competitive. And I don't know, I grew up with my folks always remodeling houses, and my brother does that now, and I know my way around a drywall knife and such. So I don't know. It's worse than I expected it to be, frankly, but we're still so happy to be here. Like, it doesn't even hardly matter. We work ourselves silly, and then we're like, where should we ride to? Oh, it's like, duh, we're not driving. It's just so different than Omaha. Because in Omaha, it's like, am I mentally prepared to be accosted on my bicycle today?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of how it felt, like a little bit more openly hostile. And here, people are like waving you through intersections and like, I don't know, it's just different.
There's some cyclists who like get annoyed when drivers wave you through an intersection because like, the vehicular cyclist mentality.
It's like, how about just freaking drive? Yeah.
Just treat me as a vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah. I have my moments like that myself because I'm like, if we all just followed, the rules of the road, it would go pretty cool. But thank you. But also like, it's okay. I don't know. It's funny.
I've also started thinking about it as like, well, if I were driving a car and I came up to a stop sign and the person at the other, like going the other way waved me through, I would go through. Like, okay, fine.
Right. Yeah, regardless of mode. Sure. Yeah. Well, it happened on we were trying to cross Fairview the other day, heading like towards the river, and people stopped like in the middle of Fairview, like not at a controlled intersection, no light, no stop sign. They were just like, oh, there's people on a bike. They must want to go to there. We're just like, what?
Yep.
What? I don't know what's happening.
Yep.
Okay, I guess we'll go. Thank you. Yeah, it's rad. We do feel like, just this kind of weird, like, I don't know. It's just, it feels good. It feels like what we were hoping for.
The timing of your like touring the house and, putting down an offer and everything is pretty hilarious to me because April 1st is the day that I got my keys for this apartment.
No way.
And then I moved in like the day after, and yeah.
Ah, that's funny. Something about April.
I like rode a bus because I wasn't about to bike through that, blizzard right in the morning. Mm-hmm. I rode a bus here, grabbed my keys, and then like by the afternoon, everything had melted, and I was like,
yeah,
all right.
I guess this is what it is. Yeah, that was wild. We when we were driving up that morning, all these tree branches were down and stuff. And actually the street that the house is on wasn't even like people were parking on other street. And I'm like, that's good news. They're not going to plow it. It's super low travel. I'm liking this so far. The trees. Oh, it's just so delightful over here.
Yeah, I got here on time, and the property manager was late because she was driving down from like Fridley or whatever, and so she was super delayed, but like the bus made it.
Nice, reliable transportation.
Yeah.
Holy moly!
So you have been to at least one local advocacy type event. How are the vibes? How do you like that?
We were jazzed to very jazzed. It was rad. I mean, like, first of all, we pull up and we could barely find parking on the bike rack. And it was like a Monday or something, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And then we go in and
that's saying a lot because that was at Dual Citizen, right?
Correct.
And
yeah.
And they've got like one of the few like 2-tier bike rack things in the city.
It wasn't like they had a rack and it was full. It was like they have pretty significant bike parking, and we were struggling to find a spot. So I was instantly like very pleased with that. And we go in, and there's a guy from Public Works. I believe Jimmy was his name.
Yep, Jimmy Shoemaker.
And he rides bikes, and he works in Public Works department. So I was like, where am I? What is happening? This is delightful. Seems important that someone designing the infrastructure or implementing these things would understand how it works. And then actually the funny part was I was really not going to open my mouth because I'm the new kid on the block and I have a lot of listening to do before I open my big mouth. Although I broke my own rule because someone brought up tactical urbanism, and I have a little bit of experience with that. And they specifically brought up plungers. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to talk about this. So did chat briefly about how tactical urbanism can be effective. And we helped save a bike lane in Omaha by doing something like that and made international news, blah, blah, blah. And then so after the meeting, everyone came up and wanted to chat more about that. So then it was really fun. I met a bunch of people. But I had like 2 beers, which for me these days is enough that I don't remember anyone's names. So if I talked to you there, thanks for the chat. It was delightful. I mean, a little bit of just like, I feel like almost high from just like the energy here. It's hard to explain. Like, I think Scott and I both have just had like these perma smiles because we're just like, it feels good here. Other people are doing these things. It's not just like we're the weirdos on the bikes, you know, like there's a lot of us here and it's nice.
Yeah. That's really encouraging to hear because like in 2015, when I moved back to St. Paul, and like, to be fair, I was living on the east side of St. Paul, but like commuting by bike from my home to the high school, also on the east side that I worked at, like I felt like I was the only person in the world who rode my bike to work.
Right.
I had no idea that there was like a Twin Cities bicycle community.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was, you know, I think when you hear the Twin Cities, you think, yeah, Minneapolis is the bike town. And like, sure, whatever, maybe that's true. I haven't spent as much time in Minneapolis, but I'm telling you what, I'm seeing a lot of people on bikes in St. Paul. We have more bike and foot dog walking traffic on our street than cars. And like, it's just, I don't know. I just feel so very happy about the number of people I see on 2 wheels and the amount of infrastructure. It's like not surprising to find bike lanes. A lot of places that you go. I will tell you, I've been kind of, you know, just mostly through Twitter. The summit situation is kind of hilarious. I did watch the city council meeting when they voted on it, and that was kind of interesting to watch. So I it's kind of, I don't know, like I need popcorn to watch like the back and forth. But yeah, that's been kind of funny to just watch play out, you know, because usually I'm the one that's like ingrained in that discussion when it would have been in Omaha. Now here it's like, oh, okay, I'll just...
You got to see the tail end of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Happy to hear it was voted through, though.
Yeah, and on a 6-1 vote, too. Like, every time that one of these projects, these fights comes up, you know, and, like, you have to decide, okay, how much of my energy and time am I going to, like, dedicate to this thing? And I was honestly really conflicted about the summit one, because on the one hand, like, it is a very important project. On the other hand, like, I could see that all of the city staff members who were working on it were like, we've got really good priorities. We know what we're talking about. We can tell that the arguments from the Save Our Streets people are just complete, very silly, and not based in reality. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I have no idea like how the park board commissioners are going to react to this. I don't really like, you know, I have some idea of the city council members and where they stand, but it was still like, I wasn't sure where it was going to go. 6-1 vote is better than I was expecting.
Strong. Yeah. It was fun to watch. And it was fun to hear the different counselors say their piece and just kind of talk about how, like, I know you don't like it. It's like patting a little like kid on the head. It's like, I know you are going to feel sad for a minute, but it's what we got to do because the data says, and the little, you know, it was pretty cool to see that happen. And all the public testimony. And yeah, it was just a neat thing to kind of, like I said, catch the tail end of. Seems like it has been a long thing. Also, not like decades either, right? Like, I don't know. I'm so far it seems that projects happen a little bit faster here. And I understand nothing's overnight. And I feel like I understand that there isn't funding specifically for that project. So it's like also cute that they're approving it. But if you don't approve it, then you're never going to have the resources allocated. So, well,
yeah. And that's, I mean, this is a perfect illustration of like how projects go in St. Paul, right? Is like, okay, we just approved it. That wasn't a like long drawn out process. But it's going to be years and years and years. Like it's going to be constructed in sections as different parts of Summit come up in the normal city public works process of like, okay, we got to replace this street.
I don't know. It just seems like the momentum here is like, I don't know. I don't live in Omaha anymore, so I don't have to talk about how they go backwards instead of forwards. But it seems like here things are at least, maybe it's a little slow sometimes, but it seems like the general momentum is going the right direction.
You mentioned that you met, a few people at the bike plan event who you probably have interacted with on Twitter. Like, how proactive were you about like trying to seek out and find people online before you even like moved?
It's kind of been like a gradual thing where like you see something retweeted by, I don't know, Twitter's weird like that. I don't know how I've just all of a sudden have Twin Cities Twitter. Yeah, I don't really know how some of it started, to be completely honest. I'm sure some of it I was doing a little just like snooping and scoping and following. But then now at this point, I feel like people are tweeting about stuff that isn't even really necessarily bike related, but it's still Twin Cities. And I'm like, interesting. Okay, I don't know how that happened exactly, but yeah, it seems pretty rad. So for example, the pedaling professor, and I feel bad because I don't even remember his real name at this point.
Yep, Zach Messinger.
Yeah, he was rad. He gave us a ride home. He's like, oh, you came this way on the way here. Let's go this way. I like Portland if you're shooting this direction, blah, blah. So it's kind of fun to just like, yeah, everyone that we have met, whether it's a person at that meeting or if it's like our painters or our realtor or our plumber, like everyone here is so welcoming and so rad and so like, I don't know, kind. It really doesn't seem like a fake. I know people say like Minnesota nice and everyone's like passive aggressive and like shitty behind your back. And maybe that's true, but it feels authentic and I'm into it. At this point, it seems fine to me. Thanks for the ride home, Zach. Yeah, it was just really fun chatting with different folks. And it's not like in Omaha where it just seems like it's very specifically like people that are 20 to 40, that's who's there. And it just seemed like a little bit more diverse crowd. But the main thing that was wild about that was that there was someone from Public Works who rides bikes.
You get to know like the folks on Public Works, and a few of them ride bikes all the time, and like they are legitimately like friends with a lot of us advocates, which is great.
That's rad, because I definitely knew people in the Public Works department in Omaha, but I was not necessarily on the greatest of terms with them. Anywho, cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
So when I was chatting with Tim, who edits some of the episodes for the Streets and Men podcast, and I mentioned that like, I need to contact Sarah again to like set up another recording, and he was like, oh, she has a podcast? And I was like, he was like, yeah, she followed me on Twitter, but like I had no idea that she was like a host of a podcast.
Who is that weirdo? Yeah. My podcast is a huge deal. There's like 14 people who listen to it, and I love every one of you. I am going to interview Counselor Jalali.
Oh, nice.
In a couple weeks. I'm excited about that. She said something about democratization of the streets, and I was like, that's who I'm gonna talk to next. So got a couple fun ones.
Oh, was that one of her comments during the summit
council meeting? Yeah, for summit. Yeah. I heard that and I was like, okay, that is right, because it's so many things that have happened over the last however many years that it's like, I don't know, it feels like sometimes people are able to forget about it or not let it continue to direct especially policymakers, right? So it's just really cool to feel like a lot of the things that a lot of us are trying to learn and started learning a lot quicker a few years ago are actually leading decision making up here. So I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, she's pretty rad. She's a lot of people's favorite city council member.
Cool.
Are you? I feel like you're in her ward.
No, unfortunately. Let's see. I think it's like Chris
Tolbert. Okay, yeah. And I think
haven't contacted him yet. Maybe I will.
Trying to remember if he's running this year or not. I feel like he might not be.
And when are council elections?
On the normal election day, November, the first Tuesday of November. The DFL endorsement, caucus has already happened and everything. So.
Oh yeah, I saw some weird stuff happening with that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just I just am taking it all in. It's entertainment at this point.
You got quite a few months to like figure out who you're interested in polling for.
Yeah.
There's a local author, Naomi Kritzer. She like every year she goes and does like a deep dive research on all of the races in St. Paul and Minneapolis. And like,
nice.
And so she's a really, really good, like, even if you don't agree with literally every stance that she has, she's like a very, very consistent in how she approaches these things. So like it's a good starting point for my own research. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So you've moved in, you've met a few people, you've gotten a feel for what it's like to get around. Well, we've mostly been talking about bikes. Have you tried out the Metro Transit at all for anything?
No, it's just so easy to ride here. It's like, I'm sure I will take some sort of non-bike transportation at some point, but right now I'm just having so much fun on my bike. I'm just actually, I gotta tell you, the most exciting thing, so I've been riding electric bikes for a while because of health stuff, and our house is so close to like Sheesh and those little shops on Grand that I have an older Somo Buena Vista like analog bike that I rode actually the other day to Estelle. But yeah, so I am very jazzed that it is flat enough. And I wonder how many times in this episode I've said jazzed. That's just feeling very jazzed. Anyway, it's really fun for me to be able to power my own bicycle for a few short blocks. I don't know. It just feels like everything's kind of exciting again here. Though that was the whole point. We needed a total shakeup. My attitude was trash, and it seems like it's already improving here. So despite, sewer bills and bats in the attic and carpenter ants outside and what else? Yeah.
Wow, bats in the attic.
Yeah, we were like, wow, there's a significant amount of little poop here and there. And then I was like, I feel like that's too big for mouse poop because I know my way around a mouse trap. Unfortunately, the old bike shop had a basement. But anyway, yeah, so the pest guy was over today. He's like, yeah, that's probably either a squirrel or a bat. And I'm like, okay, well, I think it's probably not a squirrel because we don't have any huge gaping holes in the attic. But, so yeah, it's literally every day there's a new mini catastrophe. It's delightful.
Any time that like I am thinking about an area for like for moving to, for living in, I think about like all of the places that I go to on a regular basis and like, okay, like what are my options here? So like if I remember correctly, you said that Scott works from home and you are
underemployed.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to start thinking about looking for a job here one of these days. I did apply for a job with Move Minnesota to do some of the open street stuff. Didn't get the job. It's fine. I think I would have said no anyway because you can sort of see that there's some furniture in my office, but there's still so many boxes and so much work to do. Like I'm not quite ready to jump full speed ahead into something like that. But easing back into the podcast and then trying to find something work from home-ish, ideally. Yeah. Or hybrid or, figured it out.
But you've figured out like where your nearest hardware store is and your grocery options and yeah.
Yeah, it's really, I feel super privileged, grateful, all those things to be able to just kind of like settle in. And like, I do not think that this would have happened if I had a 40-hour week job right now. Like, it's just so bonkers to do this whole out-of-state move, and Scott had been in his house in Omaha for 17 years, and he's an artist, and so he has like his whole studio, let alone like my bike shop. It's just a lot. So I can't believe it's the middle of June somehow already, but we were thinking that the end is in sight of the worst of it. I think, knock on wood.
I can't decide which I would think of as being like more stereotypically messy, like an artist's at-home studio or a bike mechanic's at-home workspace.
Yep. And so then go ahead and just combine those two and come on over because that's what you got. It's like I have too many bikes, books, and plants. That's like definitely those are my vice areas. And then Scott, like he's such a multifaceted artist. He's got like, and we've both been involved in so many different like advocacy campaigns over the years that we've like just have so much stuff, too much stuff if you ask me. But I've gotten rid of it a lot. I've been really enjoying the Matt Grove Buy Nothing group because you're just like, here's some weird shit I don't need. Come and pick it up off my step. So slowly getting rid of some stuff. Found a random saddle. I should just start like tweeting out pictures of random stuff. Like who needs this bike part?
Right.
Who needs this random shit?
I can definitely relate to that. Even though like I already was pretty minimalist, like moving to a new space just anytime it's like, oh yeah, discovering all kinds of things that I'm like, why was that in that box?
Right. Where did this even come from? Whose is this? Is this yours? Is this not yours? Like it's just, it's all of that. So, and then we have duplicates of a lot of stuff because Scott was riding bikes before I met him. That's how I met him, actually wandered into my bike shop. But yeah, so we're like, how many of the same tool do we need? The answer is a lot. Scott thinks we need them all. So right now we have a lot. It's fine. It's fine.
Any other fun, exciting things that you want to talk about with the move right now?
Well, first of all, everyone from Omaha is already texting me like, I'm going to be up here this day for a conference. I'm going to be up here this day for a concert. I'm going to be up here this day on my way to Duluth. Like, so we're already getting people that are like trying to use us as or not use us, but like see us on their way or like come back through and stop or whatever. And one of my buddies from ModeShift, Omaha, actually, Derek, he was up here, I think also he's a computer IT something for UNO University. So he was up here for something and he swung by and we were like, do you need a ride to the airport? And he's like, no, I'm just going to walk 2 blocks that way, hop on the blah, blah, blah line to connect to this line. And I was like, right. our plan is working. People can exist here without cars. It's so exciting. So that was like, we were just kind of beside ourselves that we're close enough to transit, short walk, and you could be to the airport. So that was pretty magical. But otherwise, no, we're just kind of trying to take it all in, figure out how to live without air conditioning, and, find the next brewery or sandwich shop or pizza place or vegan spot, actually. We've been at J. Selby's a lot. Good times.
You visited the obvious choice that I was going to name.
Someone else suggested Reverie in Minneapolis. You know anything?
I don't know where that one is.
I don't either, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to ride to there.
I've got a fair bit of like exploring and getting familiar with things to do as well, because this is the farthest west that I've ever lived.
That's what I was going to say. Where are you-ish now?
So I'm in Seward now.
Okay.
So from your place, it would be like across the Marshall Street, Lake Street Bridge. And then I'm like in the northwest corner of the neighborhood.
Okay, cool. I rode over that bridge the other day to meet a friend at Dogwood for coffee. And yeah, of course she showed up on an electric big dummy. I'm just like, everyone here rides fun bikes. This is just good. So yeah, it's fun exploring.
Yeah, Sarah, welcome to the Twin Cities.
Thank you. So far, so fun.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Streets.mn podcast. This show is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivative license, so feel free to republish the episode as long as you are not altering it and you are not profiting from it. The music in this episode is by Eric Brandt and the Urban Hillbilly Quartet. This episode was hosted and transcribed by me, Ian R. Buck, and was edited by myself and Tim Marino. Find other listeners and discuss this episode on your favorite social media platform using the hashtag StreetsMNPodcast. Until next time, take care.